Welcome back, Red Spotters. Another show here on the Red Spotlight Podcast, our officially second show of the year 2021, after America already had a coup attempt. So we've survived an insurrection and we're still standing. Yay. I'm your host today, Alexis J. Soto, joined by the return of somebody who has not been on the show for quite some time. The wonderful Peter Martinez has returned. And of course, we'll get into where he's been and just, getting reacquainted with him. Today, in fact, we're going to be talking about the new films that are out on HBO Max and Disney Plus, respectively. That is Wonder Woman 1984 and Soul. And so, yeah, that's the show. This is Red Spotlight number 286. How are you all doing? I'm doing fine. I'm alive. I'm good. Doing well. Peter, where you been?
I return like Gandalf the White after facing death. I return transformed.
You survived Rona.
I did. One of those, yeah. I did catch it. Had it for at least 2 weeks before I tested negative again. I'll say, as someone that didn't have even the worst of the symptoms, it's not great. It's not good. Don't get it. Please wear a mask. Please do everything within your power. I mean, I only got it recently. If this whole thing had been handled better, I probably never would have gotten it. So
yeah,
I blame Donald Trump for me getting it.
I would blame him too. And of course, for everyone that is getting it, of course they should rightfully do that. If it is something you'd like to, do you want to run-do some of the worst things you experienced? Some symptoms exactly?
Symptoms? Sure. I knew I had it because I just felt I had like a headache, and then my head started throbbing, and I was like, oh fuck. And I had just gotten tested, and I was just waiting that day to get the results, and it's like I already knew what the results were gonna be. But then later that night, I just stayed in my room all day, and then when I saw the message, I'm like, oh, okay, time to quarantine. I had a runny nose. I actually didn't cough a lot, but it was this thing where if like I would breathe hard, like I could feel it, and like if you
in your
breathe
chest, basically.
Yeah, so I wouldn't breathe too. I made sure not to breathe too hard, because if I did, I would cough. But I didn't like regularly cough, but just if I did that, like the reaction would be a cough. Have both, like when you both feel warm and cold. You know the chills? Have you ever had the chills?
Yeah.
Where you're just like shaking and like you can't get a hold of it. Yeah, a lot of just kind of regular sick, those kind of symptoms you get when you're sick. But just here and a little bit, some worse, some not that bad. That's why I said I'm pretty lucky just in that I didn't get some of the worst ones, because some people, of course they get extreme fatigue. I didn't have that. Some people lose their taste or lose their sense of smell. I never lost those. Some people's their symptoms go on for a while. Like for me, if it was at the level of if I didn't even know COVID existed, let's say I was one of the first people in the United States to get it before it was this huge thing, I would think like, oh, I just had a bad cold, but now I'm okay. It wasn't any of those extraordinary symptoms, but it's still not good. And with COVID, again, you never know if there could be long-term effects. Because, yeah. So, I mean, I should probably get like a checkup at some point.
I'd recommend everyone that a good year from now get a checkup because that's one of the haunting realities about COVID, and we've known the entire time, is one never really knows what the long-term effect of COVID will be. And
yeah.
that is not good news in any sense of the word, obviously.
Yeah.
But overall, it seemed that you made it out in one piece. How was your mental state during all of this?
I mean, I guess it's always trash, so about the same.
Yeah, okay. About the same, okay. Oh.
I don't know, it's weird. Once I had it, it's just like, okay, well, fuck, all right. And then that was just kind of it. Then you just kind of...
We're moving on with life.
Yeah, or not, but you're just writing it out. It's just one of those things.
Well, that's good to see you in one piece, and it's great to have you back. I honestly cannot believe, both in terms of how quickly the time has gone by, but then also how much time has gone by, because you've not been on a show since mid-November.
Was it November? Yeah, you know what, that makes sense. Yeah. Because I got it mid-December. So, yeah.
And I don't remember I think that may be the longest stretch of time where you just weren't recording.
Is it? Fuck, I need a life.
In a while, anyway. You're on this show. You're required to not have one. I think by just association. But anyway,
we need to keep David entertained.
And
hi, David.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And we have a lot of shows planned for everyone. Just a quick reminder, Peter and I will finish the Guillermo del Toro series that was unfortunately interrupted in the middle of November through extenuating circumstances, and then Peter's eventual, I should say, diagnosis of COVID-19, and then I thought you were going to say
inevitable demise.
No. Well, death is inevitable in general, but not in this case. Hopefully not. But the point is, we will get back to it, to finishing. We have 2 more episodes to go to finish the Guillermo del Toro series. Alexis Moreno and I have actually started our latest TV segment with The Crown. Our first episode of the year was actually deep diving the first season, and you can listen to that right now. And we have 3 more episodes to go for each of the seasons. David and I are going to be doing a spontaneous audio commentary on Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2 because I was not part of the original audio commentary. If I recall correctly, I left.
Oh, when did you... So you weren't part of it at all?
I was there for the first 15 minutes, and then I had to leave. I had an emergency that I had to take care of in the middle of the recording. So I left, and then you and Kyle were left to your own devices.
That's interesting, because Kyle calls it... He says that he thinks that's like the best commentary.
No, he says it.
Has done.
He says it, and I try not to take that personally. And I find it hilarious to me that he says these things in front of my face, and it does never occur to him that that might be... Because, like, I'll tell you what was frustrating about that statement is you, Mr. Martinez, only appeared for maybe a handful of those commentaries, while I committed to being on every single 20 audio commentaries we did for the MCU. And of all the ones that he says is his favorite, it's the one that I'm not on.
It's about
You can't make this shit up.
quality, not quantity.
I still think the most hilarious thing that we did out of those commentaries was, well, maybe not hilarious, but one of the two things I remember was you were in a bad mood during the recording of the Avengers commentary, and you kept slapping the shit out of him for saying something that you thought was stupid. But that's not the most important thing. The one that was hilarious was the first Avenger, where Kyle, for the entire 2-hour runtime, could not explain why he does not like the character of Captain America.
It's funny because it got to a point where I didn't care, but I just thought it was funny, just pushing that, and he's just kind of like, because he's nice or good, and I'm like, okay. I think we came to the conclusion that it was jealousy. I don't know.
It was weird. Go listen to that recording if it's still there. It's still on there. But I want to say that recently, I believe, as a matter of the last few weeks, I still think he said to my face that he never liked the character. He says it. He never liked the character until he grabbed the fucking hammer in Endgame.
Yeah, I don't know. I think he's explained it before, but it's just like, okay. You know what? Okay. You like him now. Mm-hmm.
All right. Sure. There's that, and also later this month, we will have a review of The Mandalorian, courtesy of myself, Peter Martinez, and Alexis Moreno. And that's going to be fun. Maybe. I hope it'll be fun.
Oof.
I hope to be entertained talking about it. I know some of us will be enraged.
I just hope the world's in a better, more positive spot when we do it.
Yeah.
Because that might be rather negative.
A thought actually just, occurred to me. I wonder if David would be interested if we should do weekly WandaVision recaps. Only because
I'm sure he'd love to do it.
Yeah. Maybe we can do that. I hope the show's good. It's dropping this month.
I'm hoping so hard that it, like, we say this all the time. We can come off negative, but I gain nothing by not enjoying shit, and I gain everything by enjoying shit. I just want to, if I could switch my brain chemistry to enjoy every fucking film and TV show that exists, I would do it in a heartbeat. Like, I want to enjoy things. So it's like, yeah, like, we don't come out here wanting to hate shit. And as many negative things as I've said about the MCU and the direction they're in and blah, 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 I do have some hope out there for WandaVision, and I really hope it's good. I'm also really interested to find out if it's an hour or half an hour. I kind of want it to be half an hour.
I think it will be. If history suggests anything, most of the Mandalorian episodes were half an hour.
But also it would fit because they're trying to emulate like those old comedy or sitcoms. That's true. So I think half an hour would fit better with that. If you're trying to, I don't know what they're trying to do, but it looks different, and for that I will definitely give it a chance.
And at the very least, one thing that will be better in 2021 is we're going to have an influx of new content where there was none last year, for the most part.
Oh, yeah. There's going to be stuff, hopefully. Yeah. If things get better. Well, at least there will be on HBO Max.
Oh, yeah. Oh, God. Oh, yeah. A lot of things happened. And I want to thank
Tom and Jerry review coming at you.
I want to thank David, Moreno, Alexis, and Kyle for filling in for you, Peter, because there were a lot of conversations that I'm sure you would have loved to have been a part of with that whole HBO Max thing, but they stepped up and they filled in for you.
All the big stuff. It feels like the second that I couldn't come, like so much big news and stuff happened, and I never commented on it. But I mean, you'll definitely get my opinion as time goes by on all that shit.
And I've told people, if you've listened to this show for a number of times, you would know what Peter automatically thinks of that. I think that would be no secret.
I'm pretty predictable, much like Kyle.
It's okay. Well, let's go ahead and get today's main topic started. And that is a review of Wonder Woman 1984 in Seoul. I think we're going to go ahead and start with Wonder Woman because this is an interesting case. It is a movie review, and in these reviews, we're going to get into why we liked it or didn't like it. There will be spoilers, of course, in case that usually isn't mentioned at the top of these reviews, but there will be spoilers. It is on HBO Max if you do want to stream it and come back and listen to our review. But because of the movie in and of itself has kind of birthed this really aggressive social media reaction for a litany of things that are in the movie itself. So it's weird. A lot of it
surprised me.
Yeah. Yeah. A lot of anger too toward it.
Yeah, people came out very strong on this film, and it really, really surprised me. To quote Grace Randolph, it's the last Jedi of the DCEU. Which, at this point, I don't even know what that means when they say that anymore. I guess it's just code for movie they don't like. I don't know. But I was really surprised to the reaction of this film. It was weird. Because a lot of people came out hating it. Hating it. Saying it's the worst piece of shit. Da-da-da-da-da. And then,
what usually happens is it's all right. It's not great. It's whatever. It's so-and-so. That's, if it's of the level that they're saying, that would be the reaction, right? But rare is it that you have such visceral hatred for the movie, where you had a constant barrage of headlines and film critics on one side, and then also there are the fans, which I'm sure they probably hate it for very different reasons, to be clear about that.
I don't even know what those reasons would be, though. That's the thing. It's not like this film made crazy fan negative decisions. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Well, I want to differ slightly from that, because I do think that there is something that, maybe not a particular instance in the movie, but something that they went for in the movie that I really appreciated, but I can tell based on how most fans are trained or programmed to think that they wouldn't go for that kind of stuff. But that really wasn't all of the discourse, if we want to call it a discourse. It's strange to see the hatred that we saw out of this. And so I have the Letterboxd synopsis right here, which I can read in a minute. But I do want to say, first and foremost, the reactions to this movie are not going to be necessarily positive or overwhelmingly positive for both me and Peter. So that's kind of giving it away a little bit. But at the same time, we're also puzzled by the fact that this is causing any kind of hatred. So just to start off with that, right? And we're going to get into our reasons for why that is. But let's just say, at least for me, speaking for myself, I thought this was going to be a dumpster fire of a film because of expectations that were set by those headlines. And needless to say, I didn't necessarily walk away hating the movie. And I'm sure I speak for Peter as well when I say that. This really elicited no anger in me whatsoever. So that in and of itself may even be a controversial take, considering what the mainstay was. So Wonder Woman 1984, directed by Patty Jenkins, coming back. A new era of wonder begins. Wonder Woman comes into conflict with the Soviet Union during the Cold War in the 1980s and finds a formidable foe by the name of the Cheetah. Yeah, I don't think this is an accurate synopsis of the movie. Okay, that may be one of the problems. Um,
Yeah, it's a weird synopsis.
that doesn't really seem. That wasn't the movie I saw, so they need to probably update that synopsis. Like literally. Yeah, I guess I'll go ahead and start. And this is just like honest reactions off the bat. When I was watching the film and then I finished watching it, I enjoyed several moments of it. I wasn't taken with it. I wasn't ever like I wasn't swooning over it. It didn't necessarily grab me per se. That being said, and I think both Peter and I also diverge greatly from the main train of thought here, where the first film didn't necessarily do that for me either. And it seemed to do that for a lot of people. So like, there's that. It was fairly decent for the most part in terms of what superhero movies do. It was fairly deficient in several plot points and certain characters. And at the end of the day, while I can kind of decipher what the message of the movie was, you can't really argue how in execution how muddled and how confusing it got, especially when you go back and re-examine the movie. And in certain points, contradictory things happen. And at best, it comes off as clumsy. At worst, a lot of really creepy discussions going on about consent because of the things that happen in the movie overall. That being said, I appreciated the campiness and the cheesiness, and I have my own thing about that, which I will go on in a rant later on during this review. But I guess I enjoyed it, but I wouldn't necessarily call it all that good. I didn't hate it, and there were parts of it that were like, looking back on it, we're like, well, that didn't make sense, and this is not really great, but there really wasn't anything in there that I hated. And I guess that's my controversial take.
I mean, I have my mixed views on this film, obviously. But I feel they're no different than like 90% of every other comic book film that has come out in the past few years, where people come out and praise the ever-living shit out of it. You know, oh, it's so great, da 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 da, and then I watch it,
by all means, name names if you'd like.
Well, you know, every Spider-Man that comes out is the best Spider-Man ever made. You know, you always get shit like that.
Notorious examples I want to say, at least with our history, would be Black Panther.
Yeah.
Wonder Woman.
The original one, yeah.
Yeah.
I'm trying to there's probably others where it's just like it's fine. You know, there's definitely moments here and there that I love that I wish I could bottle and just have it like that, you know, but it's attached to the rest of this beast that I just kind of feel whatever about. And I felt similarly to that with Wonder Woman 1984. Like, there's little moments of greatness, you know, here and there, but it's mostly just, you know, your typical overbloated, forgettable comic book movie. And that might sound super negative, but I also think that a lot of comic book movies are that way, more than I think people would be willing to admit. We haven't reviewed The Mandalorian yet, but one of my comments was when I saw this film was, I have no idea how people can go from praising The Mandalorian like it's the greatest thing that's ever been made, and then trash Wonder Woman. Like, I don't understand the mindset that that moves, from this position to that position with these two films. It's really, really baffling to me. But I mean, yeah, we can get into the nitty gritty with all of it. But at the end of the day, it's like, I would classify it as disappointing because I actually had high hopes for 1984 Wonder Woman. But at the end of the day, like I was not angry at all. I never felt like, wow, this is a piece of shit. Like that never once like moved through my head the entire time I watched it.
I rarely get disappointed for movies that I'm not already excited for. And I was never excited for the Wonder Woman movie that came out originally, but I was surprised overall with how competent it was, and overall I enjoyed the first film. I didn't love it, unlike everybody else, but I enjoyed the first film. I liked the movie. With Wonder Woman 84, I suspect perhaps our hopes were higher in the sense that it was a terrible year. The pandemic was raging and movies are largely canceled. And so a big blockbuster coming to, basically your home is an exciting prospect on some level. But still, I guess for me, those high hopes came crashing down when I was reading those reviews. So again, I went into it expecting the worst thing ever. So that's kind of that's where my mindset was because of it after reading those reviews. And I generally don't get disappointed in something unless I am invested and am excited for it. Like a Marvel or a Star Wars, basically. Mm-hmm. Like, I can tell you some big disappointments, like a real, well, actually, I guess the biggest disappointment would be The Rise of Skywalker. Maybe ever for me.
Maybe the best thing I've done as a friend was cushion that disappointment for you.
I think that, as sad as that sounds, that may be true. Because I'll tell you, what a devastating blow would it have been?
Yeah.
To really expect something great and then walk out of whatever that was.
No, we had months of just coping with it and like, okay, we're going in and this is what it's going to be, and that's what it was.
We treated it like a funeral.
Yes. But you know what? Imagine if we walked in cold. Like, just no idea. Oh my God.
The word shattered comes to mind.
We would have been broken eternally. Like, I don't know. I would have been so angry. But no, I came to terms with that movie long before it came out. Thank you, leakers at Bad Robot. Shout out Star Wars Leaks Reddit. Yeah,
so
I agree.
Yeah, that's why I wasn't disappointed with it necessarily so much. I mean, Wonder Woman 84.
But I feel like if this was like a new Star Wars, I would feel the same.
Yeah.
It would be like Solo,
Oh, yeah, of course.
It's like, it's fine. It's not terrible, but like, if people came out of Solo saying it's the biggest piece of shit ever made, I'd be like, I certainly don't love it, but like, okay. There's not much to be angry about. I guess if you're looking at the political stuff with Wonder Woman, and I don't even know if we should get into that, because I don't even know what to navigate with like this. It's a lot of shit, political shit I don't fully understand.
There's a lot of broader discussions and implications, and they're hard to have that because of how confusing they were communicated.
Yeah. I'll say this, but I don't think I even feel as far as what I know personally, I don't feel qualified to be like, this is this because of it. I don't. If this movie angered you politically, you probably have a point, but I don't fucking know.
Like, I guess to me, just real quick, overall, I feel the attempt based on that third act, was an anti-war, anti-hate message. I feel that
Clearly.
that was the attempt of it, and the use of nuclear missiles being sent off in every which direction came off as anti-war, overtly in that sense. I feel that was the most clearest attempt at a message that we can decipher. The political ramifications that I'm not even so sure were intentional, but were just freaking accidents that have pissed off certain fragments of the world, were its handling of geopolitical politics in other regions that are featured in the movie. I don't necessarily feel much value in getting into that right now because I can't really identify. It's not my place to talk about that part of the world and that stuff. So it's there if you want to look it up, but that people are offended with how it was handled. Okay.
I've read some people's opinions on it, and I'm like, I okay. I don't know. Like, I just can't. So it's like, if that's what you take away, clearly there might be something there then. And not even to say that the filmmakers did it intentionally. You can unintentionally imply some pretty fucked up shit, like with the whole Steve Trevor thing, which I do feel qualified to talk about, and say, like, unintentionally that is some fucked up shit.
I like to say that a little bit later. I just want to get some basic things out of the way with.
Sure.
Just rudimentary things about the quality of the film.
Okay. You know what's the... Yeah. Oh, go ahead.
No, go ahead. What you were going to say.
Well, I was just going to get into some of the more broader aspects of the film that I think really held it down. Was
the length.
The length. It's too fucking long. It's way too long.
2.5 hours. Like, I get it's a blockbuster. I get it. But, like, not even... Most blockbusters get, like, 2.5 hours is Infinity War and Last Jedi level length right there. Like,
not every blockbuster, just because, like, the scope is big doesn't mean the length has to be big. I remember before I pressed play and I saw the number or how long it was, and I was just like, oh boy, like, let me get comfortable. And after having seen the movie, I think a lot of people wouldn't feel so bad if it just didn't take up so much of their fucking time. Like, and it didn't have to. Like, if you have...
The movie has two opening sequences. Two long opening sequences. That's the first problem.
Very long. And I guess the biggest issue is you have the first opening sequence, which is the Themyscira stuff, which is kind of fun.
Yeah.
But it's very clearly meant to be about a lesson. But I don't understand what the fucking lesson is.
There's no payoff, I think, to that, really.
It's like... It's meant to, though. It's kind of like you can't go back kind of stuff, I guess. Like, the reality is you cheated and you need to live. And I thought, I was like, is this about cheating? Or it's not true and only true, beautiful things are true. And it's a lot of, like, platitudes, like that are being said to her at the end of that whole thing that don't make the most sense. Like, it felt like they picked random words out of a box to make it sound just flowery language. It felt like I was on the debate stage of a presidential debate, you know?
That's where my mind went, and I was thinking of one person in particular. I won't say who, but he resembles a rat. The thing is, though, the thing is, it's a beautiful sequence to look at. I think it's a wonderfully executed sequence. That first one, anyway. Both of them actually are pretty fun. But with the first one in particular, what was the point?
I think that's the thing. I think the whole point was that lesson she learned as a kid. It's supposed to reverberate and, like, come through at the end. But the message of the film is just so unbelievably muddled. And I'm just not sure what it is they're getting at. So, like, at the end, it just feels pointless and useless. And honestly, I know she fought to keep it in. It should have been cut. You know?
Yeah. Patty Jenkins, you mean, really fought for that sequence to stay in the movie, and Warner Brothers reportedly wanted that sequence gone.
Yeah. They were right. Sometimes the studios are right. Hate to say it. Sometimes I know it's all about the director's vision and blah, 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 blah. Sometimes they're fucking wrong. Sometimes maybe they're just too close to the project and they can't take a step back and be like, this is too much, you need a cut. That needed to be cut. Also because I think that mall sequence was easily my favorite scene in the whole film.
Yeah, I agree.
It's so much fun.
It really is. Again, we can't really stress how confusing it is to go from one opening sequence to the next opening sequence. It felt like we were watching an alternate opening of the movie on a deleted scene on a Blu-ray, and then
that's what it felt like.
And then we watched the actual opening of the movie. That mall sequence was really fun, and it was kind of funny too. Like I enjoyed it.
I enjoyed it because you start off and it's like the 1980s, and it's the mall, and it's you have that, and then you have these jewel thieves. You have her run in classic superhero stuff. She's throwing her lasso. She's saving kids, and it's fun and it's funny, and it's like just classic superhero cheese fun. And like when that started, I'm like, oh, this is great. I'm going to love this movie. Like I thought I was going to love Wonder Woman 1984 once that sequence hit. And then
the movie just kind of sits still.
The movie just kind of meanders. Like that's the thing. So much of this movie meanders. And I think it thinks it's doing something, but it's not. It kind of reminds me of a boring Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2. Because Volume 2 doesn't have a lot of plot.
Right.
A lot of the movie, again, is just the characters interacting and growing. Like it literally just starts with them on, the Golden People planet, going straight to Ego, and then they're just on Ego, and then, there's just not a lot of plot going on. It's mostly character stuff. And it felt like that's what Wonder Woman 1984 was going for. But just the character stuff is kind of fucking lame. And it's dragged out.
That's one of the things that makes me really upset that it was handled the way that it was. In fact, I'm referring to the execution of what you saw as the final product, because I'm an advocate of more movies like Guardians 2. Let's have much more, blatant character work instead of just getting lost in plot, which at times can be the very least interesting thing, as Del Toro likes to say in movies. And and Patty Jenkins herself has gone on the record in several interviews saying that that's what she attempted to do with this movie, was to have more scenes with the actors, more conversations, and focus more on character. And what makes me upset is because of how it ended up coming off on screen, it may have done more harm than good for that notion of having more comic book movies with character-focused sequences. And I think some people are going to look at that. It's like, okay, where's the superhero fight? Why is, like, some stupid fan complaints were like, why isn't Diana in the Wonder Woman costume more often? Where's her sword and shield and stuff like that? And that kind of criticism makes me kind of gag, because I can appreciate what Patty Jenkins was trying to do with this. It just didn't work out the way that it was, and because of it didn't come out good, basically. And because of that, I fear, as some high-profile YouTubers out there are calling for, you know which one, are saying we need more homogenized blockbusters that really just go ahead and appeal to the same four-quadrant thing.
Just give the fans exactly what they ask for.
Yeah.
Never challenge them.
So that's what really pisses me off about the movie, is that it accidentally, like, on a silver platter, hands these really terrible talking points and advances these ideas that I think are kind of crippling blockbuster movies.
Yeah, I don't think it needed more action. If anything, it just needed to be shorter. You just need less time in between the action scenes, especially because a lot of the things that happen in between the action scenes are just so unnecessary. And so, like, we take so long getting to know fucking the cheetah.
Yeah, Kristen
There is
Wiig.
so much time put into it, and I don't even remember what's the exact sequence, but like you see her, she's nerdy, they go out and talk, like there's so much time getting to know her and everything about her. And then she just drops out of the movie halfway. But you spent like so much fucking time at the beginning with her. And then, the same happens with Pedro Pascal's character. And then when Steve comes back, it's a lot of, just spending time with Steve. And I just feel like so much of this could just be cut down. Like, again, comparing it, the only reason I'm comparing it to Guardians Volume 2 is because I think it's similar, the approach.
Right.
Especially because they're both sequels, right?
Right.
I can remember every conversation Peter Quill has with his dad.
Yeah.
Right? It's only like 3 or 4, but like big things happen in each conversation, and it's like, okay, it's tight, I guess, with the script. Everything that happens between Diana and Cheetah in the beginning is such a blur. Because it's so much, and a lot of it is just so unnecessary, and sad to say, but a lot of the scenes with her and Steve Trevor too, where it's just a lot of it, I don't remember them, I don't remember their interactions. There's just a lot of nothing in the smack dab in the middle of this film that you can just cut completely and even change to make more interesting. Because with Cheetah, it's like, okay, I've seen this type of character before. With the
Syndrome.
Yeah.
What's his name? Aldrich Killian in Iron Man 3.
Electro.
Oh my God, which is gonna come back in another movie.
Yeah. So you have that, and then the stuff with her and Steve is so predictable, and it just doesn't stand out. Like, there aren't any lines, there aren't any moments, any ways in which they bond. Maybe when they're in the plane.
That was actually, I think, the best for me. That's where it worked the best, was when they're in the plane. Because I think it all came together in that one little piece. But overall, I guess the question bears, what was the point of bringing Steve back? What did it actually do for Diana?
She learned her lesson that she needs to just realize that things are the way they are. And
that's a really terrible message.
Right? It's weird. It's a weird message.
In a weird time too. Like, hello, read the political terrain these days. This may be going all over the place, but that's one of the bungled messages too. In the climax of the movie, like there was this really what was supposed to be intended as an inspirational speech by Diana herself, and I think the intended feeling was that she was trying to make a case for love.
Yes,
but
it comes
the dialogue
off,
yeah,
it comes off as like you just got to deal with things the way they are.
I think, did she actually say those words?
I don't think she says those exact words, but it's just kind of like it's a weird message, right? And it doesn't work towards this whole idea of like a beautiful, because they use the beautiful lie music, like, oh, it's a lie that it would be great to have Steve Trevor back, but he's gone for good and she needs to move on and da 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 da. But like for a lot of people, I'm sure their wishes weren't like just I need to move on. It's more of, can I have food? Can I have shelter? Can I have water? Can I have basic necessities? It's weird, and I know that their message was the opposite about love and togetherness and care for one another. What I think this is how I think you could have saved this whole plot, right? I think if the way you fix the curse on your wish is to make an unselfish wish, I think that would have worked better. Instead of just saying, I renounce my wish. Because it's just kind of like, well, you know, we just got to deal with it. It just comes off weird. It's a weird, muddled message. And actually, I haven't seen a lot of people discuss it. Maybe I'm taking the wrong thing away. Maybe other people understand it better. But I remember watching it. It's like...
No, that speech in the third act was very criticized because people just didn't understand. At best, people didn't understand what was being said. And at worst, people were tearing into that speech as this really disgusting case for status quoism.
Yeah,
it was in the dialogue, and then also in the delivery too. Wasn't very. It all just kind of came crashing down at that moment, I feel.
You know what this should have been, and I know this is kind of stealing from Spider-Man 2, but I think it would have worked.
Which Spider-Man 2?
The good one, the only one, as far as I'm concerned, is she makes her selfish wish, and that's the thing, right? Making a selfish wish is what causes this, and she makes the selfish wish to bring Trevor back, but bringing Trevor back loses her powers, and she understands this from the beginning. And she makes that choice. Because that's the other thing, too. A lot of people make these wishes and they don't know the consequences. So it kind of makes me go like, well, if you tell me, it's kind of like saying like, hey, do you want $5? And I'm like, yeah, sure. And it's like, now that you got those $5, 50 people are going to die. It's like, whoa, you didn't tell me that when you gave me the $5. So it's kind of weird because I don't put it on these people. Like if someone said, here's a wish, I'd be like, okay, cool, whatever. You know, you didn't tell me there would be consequences. It's the same with this. I think the people need to understand the consequences before they make the decision, because then that makes the fact that they made that decision a lot bigger. You know what I mean? So like, I think at the end of the day, she chooses Trevor over her powers. But because of that, shit gets really bad and she can no longer save people, and it kind of like breaks her. Again, it's very Spider-Man 2 stuff, and it hurts her. But, you know, she wants Trevor more than anything. But then, you know, Trevor realizes like, hey, you know who are the people that can save everyone? It's you, you know? And then that's where she kind of learns like she was being selfish, you know, in sort of wishing him back. And not being able to help people. And then I think if you had people wishing for very selfish things like, I want a brand new car, or I want this person dead, or I want this, and the way to reverse it is to make an unselfish wish, which is to make a wish for for the betterment of other people. I think that would be I think at least the message would be clear. You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah.
And it would fit better. But
let's talk about Max Lord, Pedro Pascal.
Yes.
Got a lot of screen time.
He did. He got a lot. I love Pedro Pascal. I think he's fucking great. He's one of those actors.
I say it's weird seeing him actually act in something.
Oh, right. Not just look around. But he's one of those actors who, whatever he's in, he's going to give it his all. And I love that about him. He goes for it. I think he's easily the best actor in this film. We haven't talked about, what's her name? Gal Gadot, but I do want to talk about her. And I like the setup to his character. I actually like it a lot. So he comes off like he's this hot shot, then you realize he's losing everything, and he doesn't want to come off like a loser. He wants to be a success. Businessman, 1980s. this idea of excess, more is better, which of course is bullshit. So I like the way it's sort of set up, you know, his motivation and all that with his kid, his business. I think that works well. But it does get to a point where it's like, what are you doing? What do you want? What is this? Are you just like a wish addict now?
It gets convoluted very quickly. And it gets uncontrollably convoluted because the rules seemingly fly out the window. Like the more and more we go into the movie, to where it honestly makes little to no sense by the end of it. Where
again, I feel like if instead of just giving him like pink eye every time he gave someone a wish, if what would happen was every time he gave a wish, it would fuck up something else, which would then make him have to do another wish. Mm-hmm. Like, let's say like he wished for his oil fields to all be full and work, and then boom, he got it, they work, but then it turns out, oh shit, you lost the contract, and that, or you know, your business partner's pulling out, so then you're like, fuck, you know, it's sort of like that thing where, you know, in cartoons there's a wheelbarrow with water coming out, so you plug one finger and then poof, water rushes out, and then you plug that finger and then poof, two more. So the unintended consequences of his wishes, it gets worse and worse, and it spirals out of control, and he's just trying to keep it together. I think that works better rather than him just like, he gets what he wants, and then it's like he just spirals out more and more, and it's like, wait, but why is he doing this? Like, didn't he just get what he wanted? Like, what's going on? It's kind of weird.
Yeah.
His motivation, I think, gets away from him.
Clearly. And with Kristen Wiig, I wasn't necessarily turned off by the performance like some people. I just think the movie just didn't care about the character by the end of the movie. You're right when you say that, you know, they spent so much time setting her up, and then she becomes a cheetah, and then she just drops off the face of the movie. And that's weird because apparently, like, Alexis Moreno told us that she was really enraged by that because that was supposed to be like the Wonder Woman's Joker character. That was her main villain. And so what are you doing here?
I got a fix for that because, again, I don't like the way they handle Cheetah. I think if this movie could have said something about like selfishness, if that had been like their main sort of theme that they're tackling, selfishness, and, you know, how it's better to be selfless and think of others, you know, very Wonder Woman, you know. I think it's a nice simple theme that fits perfectly with that mall opening that I love so much, that kind of superhero movie. I think it would have been great, and I thought they were kind of going this way, and I think it would have worked really well. Is Cheetah genuinely has a crush, like romantic crush, on Diana.
Those early scenes were giving me some signals about whether or not that was going in that direction, and then it didn't.
I think that would have worked so much better. I think it would have been better of she has a genuine crush, and then maybe Diana kind of starts to like her too, and then what's her name gets all excited, and you know, like, they kind of start to have a relationship, but then that's when she wishes for Trevor, and then he comes back, and then it kind of complicates things, and then maybe what's her name, Cheetah's wish is like she wants the power to take back Diana, and in a, you know, monkey's paw type way, that power is to turn into a cheetah girl or whatever.
I love how that was already better than what we got.
Yeah, right. Because I feel like, again, to the theme of selfishness as well, Diana's being selfish, and she's not caring about what's her name's feelings, Cheetah, and then Cheetah's being selfish with her, and again, it's about thinking about others and caring about them, and it's a message of love as well, and it's also just more interesting, I feel, anyway.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's my fix for that.
Yeah, and there were also some weird things. Like a lot of people, were mentioning online about certain sequences with her. One that really seemed to enrage people was the fact that this movie yet again did with her. It's like, when she was wearing glasses, she was uncategorically unattractive. But as soon as they come off and you put on the high heels, she becomes the hottest thing there is. And that may have sent a really unfortunate message to young ladies, young girls especially.
Young girls out there, no matter how attractive you think you are, if you're wearing glasses, you are ugly. That is what Hollywood is telling you.
It's really unfortunate.
Glasses
and then the other weird thing was the way that it was presented in the movie, which was weird. So there was a sequence where she was basically beating the crap out of her would-be rapist. And it's presented as a bad thing to beat up a rapist.
That's weird. Oh, and I had another idea for a fix to that. What they should have done is that should have been a triumphant moment. That should have been the moment where she realizes she has powers and she's like, oh, that's great. And then you have another scene where she beats someone for a much less offense, right? Like maybe someone accidentally shoves into her walking by and then they don't apologize, and then she immediately gets them and throws them through a window, and it's like, whoa, you know, you're taking it too far now. The last thing, like, yeah, fuck yeah, like that guy's a piece of shit, kick him in the balls. But then like now the power's going to your head, like I think that would have worked better. They
basically what they put is both of those ideas into one scene, and it genuinely puzzled me. Like, wait a minute, it felt like the movie was judging her for beating up her would-be rapist,
and it kind of, based on the way that guy was, like, he seems to always be hanging out in dark areas where people walk home. He's probably done it multiple times. Like, this seems like a serious rapist scenario. So, yeah. Like, she has that homeless friend, right? To tell you, like, oh, she's a good person. Maybe, like, she beats up the rapist and that's a triumphant thing. But then, like, the homeless guy, maybe she gets short with the homeless guy and pushes him, and then he goes flying or something like that, and then you can go like, whoa, she's changing. But beating up rapists is good, guys. Like, I don't.
Yeah, that seemed to be a very unfortunate.
There's a lot of optics issues in this film.
Which is, I guess, the next thing I was going to bring up, which was the whole matter of consent, and that is the fact that Steve Trevor comes back and inhabits the body of this person who is alive and well, and he just kind of goes away. The essence or the soul of him just kind of goes away. Steve Trevor takes over the body, and they go back to his apartment. They do things with each other. They're going through his stuff. This guy's name is never mentioned. And the whole matter of consent, which is sparking a whole range of conversations online, is the implication that I would probably say that regardless if it was sexual or not, whatever they ended up doing, which is highly likely that they did,
it was clearly
it still qualifies as some kind of abuse or consent issue. But on the surface anyway, it was just weird. It was just a strange decision to do that. Why couldn't they just have had Steve come back in his own body? Why did you have to have him take over somebody else's body?
Yeah, it's magic. You create the rules. Just have him pop into existence. Like, why why this whole thing of like he's actually inhabiting this other guy's body who's already alive, but when Diana sees him, she sees Trevor, but everyone else sees someone else. And I guess you took his life now. I guess what makes it weird is they acknowledge all of this, that they took this guy's life, and neither of them care. And it's this really weird, like, oh yeah, I guess, you used to be a banker, the guy in your body, yeah. Neither of them, it's so weird. It just adds complications that aren't necessary or shouldn't be. I don't get it.
Some would say it reaches the territory. I would probably say, to be fair, it borders immediately on problematic.
She raped that guy. Like, let's be real. They both did in a weird way. Like, I don't, it's fucking weird why you would go this route. Maybe, and again, maybe this would work if you're like, this is another one of the signals that Diana's acting selfishly. Again, like if you want to keep that whole selfish thing, like I said in my headcanon rewrite, you could be this thing like they realize like, oh, like this is another guy's body. Like this can't last. Like we got to give this guy's body back. And Diana's like, they're like both agree, but Diana's like, but we don't have to do it immediately. Like we can, at least spend the weekend, at least for the weekend, catch up with each other or something like that. And then she, continually tries to extend the time. And then, once you get to the point to the end, with everything going on, he's like, hey, like, we can't do this anymore. Like, you gotta move on. Like, we can't, this is all selfish and all that. I had my life. You still have yours. This guy has his. Like, we can't be doing this anymore, basically. I think that angle would have worked. I do think it would have worked. And it would have fit with what theoretically could have been the theme of the film. But the way they do it here, it doesn't. I just think it works terribly.
It's a weird decision off the bat, and it's made much worse by the fact that the movie does not at all care about what happens to this unnamed person.
The thing. She's your superhero, and she's just like, fuck this guy. Like, and you know what? It would be one thing if she said, fuck this guy. They don't even think about it. Like, this guy doesn't even give them a passing thought. That's what makes it so weird. Yeah, no. That doesn't work. Oh, can we talk about Gal Gadot?
Yeah.
Gal Gadot doesn't have it. She doesn't have that it factor as far as actresses go. She comes off as more model than actress, and sometimes that can work. Like, I would say close comparisons, like people like The Rock or these other guys are like, they start off more, arm candy. Schwarzenegger and all of them, they were bodybuilders. Batista, before they went into acting. But I think with all these guys, they at least have an it factor, a charm to them, where even though they're not great, you love watching them on screen. They just have this magnetic personality. I'll use that word. Or in the case of Batista, they try very hard to be good. It's not just work within what I got. It's no, I want to be an actor. I just feel like Gal Gadot doesn't have that. I feel like so many scenes would work better, or at the very least be less boring, if she had that magnetic personality to her like you would want.
You're saying that
Wonder
she
Woman
basically
character.
lacks charisma.
She lacks that charisma in the absence of like deep acting ability. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I just think it's something that's you need for this character. Like I know you haven't seen it, but a Christopher Reeve for the original Superman, and even, you know, Chris Evans with Cap.
Mm-hmm.
Everyone says Cap's a boring character, but I think a lot of Chris Evans, you know, magnetic personality bleeds through into the character and makes it work. Whereas if you had someone who's just a lot more boring in their performance, I don't think it would work.
No, it wouldn't.
Yeah.
That's why casting is so important, especially for these kind of movies. In large part is what did the heavy lifting for the MCU. Probably is such great casting.
I think casting worked in their favor. I like Gal Gadot. I do, but it's just in order for her Wonder Woman movies to work more, they gotta just have better scripts and better writing, because they can't rely on her to carry shitty scenes.
One thing I will say to kind of button it up, you know, our discussion with this movie is, I saw a lot of people saying that, man, it wasn't the great movie that the first one was.
I never loved the first one.
I didn't either. But I guess to me, what's unfortunate is, in regards to tone, and I saw this being brought up a lot, is they were really, a lot of people whose opinions I really do value were, among their larger issues with the film, were turned off by the tone. A lot of people kept saying, they kept going back to, it was too cheesy for me. It was too silly for me. And I preferred the more serious tone of the first movie. And that's where I would detract the most, because I would really want more silliness and more cheesiness in these kind of comic book movies. And those moments in this movie, to me, were what worked the best and what kept me somewhat engaged with it. So I could not disagree with that talking point more.
No, anytime they upped the cheese factor in the film, I was there for it. Like I said, that mall scene in the beginning, if you could have stretched that movie to an hour and a half, I would have walked away adoring Wonder Woman 1984. Yeah, no. Again, people and their serious superheroes, it's so fucking weird. I honestly think it's just there are a lot of people saying this are adults.
Exactly.
And because they're adults, they want everything, you know, they don't want to look at kids stuff, and it's like, well, then you probably shouldn't be looking at a Wonder Woman movie if you want more seriousness. I don't know.
Well, just the easiest and fastest way of saying what's the situation is, a lot of people who make these criticisms are adults, and in many ways want the material, the properties the content that they experienced as children to age with them.
Yes.
And there's a great Patrick Willems video I would recommend you all go watch on YouTube that explains this and breaks this down better than we could explain it. Go watch that video.
No, that's a really great video. But I think a really great example of this is that photo that they released recently.
Thank you for bringing that up. I was going to bring that up right now.
That is all Zack Snyder, where it's Wonder Woman with like an old-timey photo of Wonder Woman with a bunch of warriors around her, with her holding the heads. Not even holding, they're just around her waist, like a fucking compass. The heads of, I guess, different generals that she's collecting their fucking heads. And I saw that picture and I laughed so hard. That's the thing too. A lot of people want them to take these characters seriously, but whenever they go super serious with these characters, it has the reversed effect for me. I take them less seriously because then it's just fucking goofy. It's just so stupid. The fact that you have a Wonder Woman there with fucking severed heads and around her waist, just like, I'm badass. I'll cut your head off.
That's why a lot of Zack Snyder's stuff in the DCEU never really, I think, resonated with the majority of people. Whether
it doesn't resonate with me as mature. Like, it's just funny that you would take a kid's character and go to these ridiculous lengths to make it seem serious, quote unquote.
So I guess that's the review for this movie. But if anything, this is kind of like a preamble, this tail end of the conversation anyway, to the Snyder Cut, which is imminent.
It is inevitable. I'm really excited for the Snyder Cut.
That's going to set the internet on fire. I can already see the reactions. It's going to be so much
fun. It's going to be so much fun.
Especially since I don't really have a dog in this race, so it's like we can just like sit back and enjoy the chaos ensue.
You want to talk about
Soul? So the next movie we have here is Soul, which is the latest entry from Disney and Pixar Animation Studios. It is actually directed by the current chief officer of Pixar Animation Studios, that is Pete Docter. This is his fourth feature animated movie. He's directed movies like Up, Monsters, Inc., and Inside Out, which may come back in the conversation. And Soul is all this living really worth dying for? Joe Gardner, a middle school teacher, has a love for jazz music. After a successful gig at the Half Note Club, he suddenly gets into an accident that separates his soul from his body and is transported to the U Seminar, a center in which souls develop and gain passions before being transported to a newborn child. Joe must enlist help from the other souls in training, like 22, a soul who has spent eons in the U Seminar, in order to get back to Earth. This is streaming on Disney Plus right now. And this conversation on this movie is also similar yet different, but almost kind of the same in a weird way. In that the conversation online may also seep in to the kind of takes that we have. I speak for myself in this case that this was easily the most anticipated movie of the year. And it very easily was my favorite movie of the year because there wasn't much.
What else was there?
There really wasn't much else to say. So at the moment, I can say that. I wasn't disappointed. I wasn't let down, personally speaking. But I wasn't enthralled, grabbed, or moved in the way that I expected to. That isn't to say that I wasn't moved by the movie per se, but not the way that I expected to, or the way that I particularly wanted to. So that is to say, I'm hesitant. That's the better word of saying, to declare that I love the movie. I really liked it. And I think it's really strong and in some spades excellent. And an interesting film in Pixar's repertoire.
Sometimes the love just comes with time.
And it could be that too. So that's my initial thoughts on it. Peter?
Soul might be my biggest disappointment of the year as far as films go.
Which isn't saying much.
But that's not a knock on the film. It's really not. And I know that sounds like it, but it's not. It's one of those things where I feel as if I was hotly anticipated the film, same as you, I thought I was gonna love this film, and it had all the ingredients of everything I wanted to see. The subject matter I loved, the animation is amazing, the world they created, the style, the characters, the music, the message that they ultimately come to at the end, I think is wonderful, and I wholeheartedly agree with it, and I think it's great. But as the credits rolled and it finished, it just didn't connect with me anywhere near I had hoped it would. And it's weird, right? Like I think it's a great film. I think it clearly is. Like there's so many amazing things in it. And the people that love it, I would never like disagree in the slightest with the people that come out and go like, "Oh, I love this movie." No, I get it. But for whatever reason, it just didn't connect with me in the ways that I hoped. And I think there's several things here and there I can point to as to why. But overall, like I'm surprised, like, wow, like I really expected to like it. And I know it's just not there for me because when I saw Coco, like I walked in with Coco like, okay, like whatever, let's watch this. And I loved it. I loved it.
Mm-hmm.
And I came out and I wanted to see it immediately again. I think I saw it 2 more times in theaters. I fucking braved that piece of shit Frozen 30-minute
Olaf's
short.
Frozen Adventure.
2 more times after to see it in the theaters. But I've seen Soul and I just haven't felt the need to watch it again.
Yeah.
And I easily could. I could just click it, turn it on, and watch it, and I just don't feel it. I
can't really tell you how much I kind of agreed with every word of what you just said in the weirdest way, because I too would like to see it again, but I haven't brought myself to watch it again. In some ways, there may not even... Half of me feels there's no need to watch it again. And the other half of me feels, well, you probably should watch it again, because there is this sneaking suspicion, and perhaps there is in you as well, maybe a little bit of optimism or hope, that maybe this is one of those movies that may end up improving with age and with subsequent viewings. Because the first viewing, it seems... for both you and I, didn't necessarily cut it the way that we wanted it to. And we also have to have a really frank and open discussion about this, because I myself am very critical about, critiquing film based solely on what you were expecting it to be, and then also what you wanted it to be. Because we've had far too many movies that we've discussed, Last Jedi among others, where the problem isn't so much what it was, what the quality of it, but it wasn't exactly what you wanted it to be. And I guess one of the things that I keep coming back to, this talking point, right, that you see on film Twitter, is, well, it didn't make me cry the way Up or Monsters, Inc. or Coco or Inside Out did. And to me, like... that really isn't how I measure the quality of a movie based on how it makes me cry. I liked the movie Onward. I thought it was really fun. There is a sequence that really got me at the end of the movie, like tears in my eyes. But it's not a great movie. Yeah,
I don't judge the quality in a film, especially a Pixar film, on whether it makes me cry or not. And it's weird that people say that, because a lot of people love Ratatouille, and I don't think Ratatouille has like a cry emotional moment to it, you know? I don't think once it's ever had that. So it's weird that there's this retroactive thing where you judge Pixar films on whether you produce tears by the end of it. Yeah, no, like you talk about like what we expected or what we wanted. I didn't know what I wanted with this film. I just saw
wanted
that
to
it
love
had.
it. I wanted to
I
love
wanted
it.
to love it. I'll
and
tell
I
you that. But I
didn't-
want to love every
I didn't
film.
get that quite to what I wanted it to be. And that's part of a little bit of the disappointment because the year that we had.
Yeah, I just wanted one film where I was just like in love with, you know. And this was it. Like this was the last hope. And it just didn't quite hit those, not even like emotions, it just didn't do it for me in the way that.
I don't know if you listened to our end of the year show with Kyle and the Morenos.
I listened to some of it.
The very end of it.
I did not finish it.
I recommend getting to the very end. The end is the best part. But in the middle of it, we talk about the movies of the year, and I just flat out say, look, there was not a single movie this year that I loved. That feels terrible to say, but it's very much indicative of the year that was. There wasn't much of a selection, granted, but even in years where the vast majority of things aren't great, there are things that we can experience that we love. And I don't have one for 2020.
I mean, I haven't looked at all the movies I've seen this year, but it's pretty telling that nothing pops out that I go like, and if you love it, it should pop out.
There are
you know what
some
I mean?
that we can say that you liked or really liked or enjoyed, but nothing that quite reaches to the level of love. This is the closest to in my book, but it doesn't get there quite for me.
Which sucks, because years prior, like, the whole top 10 and more, like, I could think of, like, 12 films that I love.
Yeah.
You know, that level. But this year's... And Soul, you know, being released the 25th, I didn't expect to love Wonder Woman 1984. I would have been pleasantly surprised if I did. But Soul, I had a lot of hope in. And when it ended, and it almost felt like, fuck, is it me? Because it is a good film. All the like I said, all the aspects I said previously are good. They just didn't align in the positions that would make it fit the black hole in my heart like I had hoped it would. I don't know. I mean, I can talk about some of the issues I have.
Let's do it. Yeah, let's do it.
Well, I told you this before. I love the first third of the film.
Mm-hmm.
I absolutely love it. And when it started, I really thought, like, this is going to be my favorite Pixar film.
Yeah.
This is going to be it. Like, this is going to be great. I love when they, you know, you hear them with the shitty band. I was in band and I was shitty. So I connected to that whole scene in the beginning, like, wholeheartedly with the band teacher. Just like, I love music, and, you know, hardly anyone here gives a shit. They're fucking terrible, and I'm trying my best. And it's a very accurate high school representation of high school band and that kind of situation. And, you know, him going after his dream and all of that, and then when he ends up dying, or at least seemingly dying, that whole world was fucking incredible.
Yeah.
There was so much trippy, interesting stuff. I loved the character design of, like, the Jerrys and the Terrys, and the whole concept of the great beyond and the great before. All of that, you know, from the very beginning of the film to where they go back to Earth, I really dug and I was into completely.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but then they hit that point where they go back, and it shifts gears. And a part of me should say, like, well, this is good because they're trying to break away from the typical Pixar formula, right? Because before it was following the typical Pixar formula. Two unintended friends go on a journey in a new world. They discover shit, emotional, third act, blah, 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 you know? But this one, they're taking it back to Earth, and it's, you know, going in a different direction. It's at this point that it to me it just feels like it feels like, and I felt backed up in my feeling the more information that has come out on the making of this film. It feels like they knew how to start the film,
right?
And I think they had an idea of a rough idea of what they wanted to say. But that second and third act feel like they just went through a fuck ton of different ideas and rewrites and of just God knows what.
Yeah, and I feel that we're going to be going back to that, you know, in subsequent viewings and reevaluations of Soul, right? Keep in mind, the Fantasy Fair podcast is going to have its own take on the movie with Kyle Lira and Alexis Moreno. So stay tuned for that review on it. But you're right in the sense that with Acts 2 and 3, it almost feels as if there's this need to pad a little bit of the stuff, because ultimately the only thing you're really saying with the movie is life is great, enjoy life, and the deeper meaning is they're really, forget this notion of having a meaning to life or a purpose to life or chasing successes. Think to me, one of the best parts, the scene that I think really I can visualize for me, was 22 in Joe's body, sitting on the porch, just on a street in New York, and watching life happen. And then, you know, the petals or the flowers fall out of the tree and the sun shining on it. That really, and then also the sequence where Joe is playing the piano later on after he gets his body back. Those really, I think, are powerful sequences that really express the message of this movie. And that in and of itself may have been part of the challenge with figuring out what to do with Acts 2 and 3, where it didn't feel maybe perhaps a little bit padded, because if that's all you're trying to say, I don't know if this is a case, if perhaps, and I don't want to say this, it feels dirty saying this because I am, and I don't myself feel this way, but it is an idea that just came to mind, and I wonder what you think, if perhaps the genre of animation maybe didn't necessarily gel with the movie they were trying to do. I don't know if that's making an excuse for it, but at the end of the day, what I did enjoy of the movie was how unlike any other Pixar film it felt, where this did feel a lot more geared toward adults than for children. And that, depending on who you are, that could be a consequence or a positive. I don't know how much there is in this movie for kids to grab onto. That maybe perhaps where the cat comes in. I don't know.
Yeah. It did feel different. Definitely that whole more adult thing. I saw people talk about that before I saw it, and I was like, oh, okay. But then once I started watching, it's like, okay, I get it. Like it's, it didn't feel like they felt the need to like entertain the kiddos necessarily. There's obviously a lot of colorful shit going on and jokes and gags.
The hell one was funny.
Yeah, that one was funny. Um, but of the information I've gleaned, and I haven't even done any research, just like what I've come across, the whole thing of like that mid turn didn't used to be there. They said that the original story was supposed to be like a heist movie. They also said like originally most of the film was going to take place in the Great Before or whatever, but then they decided to make it more about life. So then they have that whole life sequence. I think the composer said there's like 6 films worth of music because of maybe the different iterations of the film they went through. And I'll give an example of where I think that is. So in the beginning of the film, I think at one point the lesson was maybe to be happy where he's at, or he didn't realize he was already happiest where he's at, because they introduced this element right at the beginning of the movie where like, yeah, he's the teacher teaching at this, high school, and, not a lot of kids care, but some do. And that's shown immediately. Like there is kids there that care, and he does reach them. Like the kid that he reached that works that's in that jazz group, and then is playing the trombone, and then immediately after they let him know like, oh, like your tenure, we're offering you the job that you can officially be a teacher. And then he's like, oh, okay, like he kind of questions it. And then you have that sort of situation when they come back to Earth where the girl, the trombone player, comes and says she wants to quit band. And they kind of set it up. Part of the film feels like it's set up at the end for him to realize that, like, oh, that sort of lesson of like, oh, I'm not happy going off to be this big player. I'm actually really happiest where I am now, helping, kids, one of those lessons. But then it just isn't that. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And it a lot of those setups feel like remnants of a previous script where it was more in line with that. Do you get what I'm saying?
No, yeah. I definitely understand what you're saying, because that necessarily doesn't. I don't think that character comes back at the end of the movie.
No. Like it feels like it set up this one lesson and he would have made this one choice, but then it's completely not about that at all. Again, it's more of just like live every day.
Well, part of the movie is, and I think this may be an example of how they cleaned that, or they gleamed that over, was Joe realizing just, how do I say this? He wasn't really aware of, well, I guess the whole thing, right, he wasn't appreciative of what he had, but also he really wasn't that cognizant or self-aware, it seemed like, with a lot of the people he interacted in his life. He came across in when 22 is in his body and they're going through the day, it came across like he was realizing that perhaps he was a little too self-centered and didn't really, I don't know. Do you know what I'm saying? Like, that was interesting, that part where he kept finding out, like, he didn't really know the people he interacted with, and then until like 22 was in his body.
Again, not as bad as Wonder Woman 1984, but there are sort of elements where I feel like a lot of what the message and what they're trying to achieve is kind of muddied.
Yeah.
And it's in stuff like that where it's like, what are you trying to say with this and with 22? And again, it doesn't become 100% clear until the very end, where it's like, okay, like this this is a great message, and I think it's a beautiful message.
Yeah.
And of course they have wonderful animation and music and all that. But it is one of those things where I feel, and I feel bad saying this because it is a good movie, but it feels like it could have used another draft to just like tighten the overall goal of the narrative.
Mm-hmm.
It's so weird critiquing a film where it's like it's mostly good, but it just doesn't hit you in the way that you wish it did.
That is an unusual circumstance that we rarely find ourselves.
Yeah. Usually if I don't like a film, it's like I have no problem saying like, yeah, I think it's bad because of this, and this, but I don't think it's bad. I can never say this film is bad. There's just areas in which I feel cause me to feel not connect with the film. And I think that's what it is. I like the first third, and it felt tight, and it felt focused, and it felt like they knew what they were going for, because it basically follows your typical Pixar formula. And then when they changed it up, I was like, oh, this is different. This is neat. Okay. But it just felt so much more muddled and not completely not that it didn't understand, but just not completely in line with where they end up at the end.
Mm-hmm. Well,
again, it seems a little wishy-washy, wavering.
Right. And I guess, I don't know, I guess what I was saying about, like, you know, Joe realizing that perhaps he wasn't as selfless as he should have been. I guess they try and pad that with, toward the end of the movie, he, you know, does the selfless thing. Like, he helps 22 go to Earth, and then he comes back, and then he heads off to the great beyond. And that was actually one of my favorite moments in the movie. And they had me just a little bit thinking that, wait a minute, they're not really gonna like end the movie with him going off into the great beyond. And I'm not entirely sure how I feel in the end, what the ending was about it yet. I think it was a good ending, but I can't help but wonder in the back of my mind because what I loved about that sequence was just how calm and at peace he was, and he seemed happy and fulfilled, and he was heading off into the great beyond.
In the original ending, he does go into the great beyond. That's another change that was made.
Was it?
Mm-hmm.
So I want to hear your thoughts on that moment and what you thought watching it.
Honestly, I think I would have liked to have seen him go into the great beyond. I think it would have especially because throughout the film, and again, this might also be remnants from that original ending. Throughout the film, he talks about, like, I feel if I die today, you know, my life would have no meaning. You know, there would have been no point. I just would have wasted my life. He says that several times throughout the film. So I think maybe by the end, him just, you know, calmly, acceptingly going into the great beyond, and, you know, maybe one of the characters questioned him, and he's like, you know, I had a great, fulfilling life, you know. I had a life that mattered, and I lived every day, and it was fantastic. You know, that sort of switch, that's another thing that kind of would have made more sense.
Mm-hmm.
But they didn't do that. My biggest issue is, again, I think emotionally, I think it would have hit better had that happened.
Right.
But my bigger issue is that the ending feels abrupt to me.
It just ends.
It feels weird. Like, it just ends. I thought for sure, there would at some point be a scene. Maybe you flashes to the future or whatever, where he kind of sees a young child, and maybe they had like a tick similar to 22, and he's like, is that 22? You know, something like that. For a sense of closure. Or maybe he has a kid, you know, he's older now. No, he doesn't have a kid, but he's, you know, years pass, and a kid comes into his band, his teaching in the high school, and they do like a little twitch or something that 22 used to do, and in his mind he's like, oh my god, is that her? And, you know, and this person loves, you know, they love band and they love life, and, you know, maybe there's a little connection. I just thought there would be something, not just like, I'm going back, roll credits.
Yeah. That was one of the stranger moments of the movie where it just kind of ends. However, what did we make of the character of 22?
I like 22.
Me too.
What?
I thought she was fun.
I wanted to know what her spark was. I know it's not the meaning of life or whatever, but I still wanted to know.
We didn't know, did we?
Maybe it was talking. Maybe like a therapist. I don't know. She helped everyone that she talked to. But no, I like 22's character. I like Joe's character. His name's Joe, right?
Yes. Yeah.
I really liked his character as well. And I like because I think that's one of the reasons why I like the beginning of the third act, because he comes in trying to be, or like he's set up like, oh, he's gonna be her mentor, and he's like, no, like I don't give a fuck about you. I'm just trying to get out of here. And then that dynamic between them and 22, I think it's fun in the beginning, and it is fun throughout the film as well. But it's different because he's a cat, and he's just kind of, yeah, I don't know. It's different because of that. Yeah, I don't know how much more I have to say on this film.
That may be one of the things about the film overall, is that, and again, it feels sad for me to say this, but like, there really isn't much to say beyond what we just said, and it hasn't really stayed with me.
Yeah, me neither. I think it's just one of those things where it's like it just didn't connect.
I wonder if this is what Nettie felt when she watched Inside Out.
Yeah, that's true, because she said she didn't like it, huh?
She said it was hyped up way too much for her. And then she walked out of the movie saying, that was it? Yeah. That's why, you know, we say it so many times on the show. The expectations that you set for yourself or that you let others set for you really, really can play with fire. Especially when it concerns a movie. So yeah. Yep. I don't know what else to say.
There is nothing else to say.
There is nothing else to say. And so I guess that means it's time for us to go. Thank you, Peter, for being here. This was a really constructive conversation on both of these movies. We managed to field through all the main issues in a pretty good pace. So yay. That's good. Make sure to keep it here under the spotlight for more podcasts every Sunday and sometimes on Thursdays. We got plenty more content headed your way in 2021. Until next time, bye-bye.